Hey there guys, and welcome to the first episode of Solid Concepts. Solid Concepts is a series that I, Stein Snake, shall be starting, with the purpose of using a game's pluses to explain why one would find said game enjoyable, and what it could do to make its strong points even better. The first game I'll be talking about is Desktop Dungeons. This is a game I played ages ago when it was a free game floating around the interwebs. That version is still free, and though it holds the roots of the series, the retail version has a lot more to offer, and it's a lot easier to get into. For those interested though, there is a link for the free version in the video description thing below. Desktop Dungeons is a dungeon exploration game which involves you, the player, sending one brave adventurer into a dungeon and having that adventurer kill things until they become strong enough to kill the boss of the dungeon. Simple, fun, rewarding, and each dungeon is rather quick, so it's a great game to get into when you have a little downtime. The game has a very silly story which revolves around a caravan, or something around those lines, being attacked and forcing the caravan to settle down. What makes the story anything worth noting is that there is a lot of enjoyable dialogue which takes place between dungeon runs and even during the dungeons themselves on signposts. The game makes fun of itself, game tropes, and even other games. I found myself unexpectedly laughing when I found that your advisor requests that you look for a banker because you've been leaving all your money in random pots. It's funny quips like that that make the dialogue worth reading, though admittedly I honestly didn't read a lot of it because I was so busy doing the dungeons. I just wanted to do more dungeons. The tile sets for the dungeons vary quite a bit, and make exploring the dungeons more lively than exploring the same stone floors and walls, though I can't say the same about the enemies. There are a few sprites for the basic enemies which you'll be coming across in most of the dungeons, and then there are recolorings of these monsters to serve as different monsters. This normally would be a bigger problem, but since the game does a good job at spacing out the newer monsters, it makes sure that you don't get overwhelmed or underwhelmed at any one point. As for the music... Wait, is there even music? 1 second. Okay, there is music. I wouldn't know since I usually play the game while I watch videos, so I never really noticed that there was music. The music itself is what you would expect, dungeon exploration music. It's good for what it's supposed to do, but I can see it getting very repetitive though, since you'll be mulling around dungeons quite a lot in this game. I mean, it's not like it's the game's name. I mean, dungeons in the game's name. You could literally expect to be doing dungeons a lot. Just say. So now that all that's been said, let's dive into the real meat of this game, the gameplay. As mentioned before, it's rather basic. You'll walk around, explore dungeons, fight things, level up, kill boss, boom, done. But don't be fooled though. This game has much more to offer than just killing things and getting loot, especially since most of the dungeons you'll be facing are randomly generated. Okay, getting this out there nice and early, I'm the kind of person who gets all giddy when there's a fun, well thought out mechanic, and this game is littered with them. Back when I first found the freeware version of this game, what really pulled me in was the fact that unexplored tiles would regenerate your health and mana when explored. This made pretty much every tile an important resource since you'd be taking a lot of damage. This mechanic serves as a limiting factor. It creates a very important choice that the player has to make. Do they want to fight what they see now and get the healing factor out of the Fog of War? Or do they forget about the Fog of War's healing factor and explore for better items? You may think, oh well, go for the regeneration of course. But it's not that simple. In some cases, you'll be faced with a fight you can't win with what you have. So you're forced to explore for either A, an easier fight, or B, items to help boost your fighting power. Now, as much as I love this mechanic, the more I played, the more I started to realize that the random dungeon generator has patterns it follows. So it made the game a lot easier for me, and it made me lose some of the wonder of exploring a mysterious dungeon. While you're exploring dungeons, you'll find magical glyphs. These serve as the game's wildcard, per se. Having a specific glyph early on will change your entire dungeon exploration strategy. Their effects are powerful and versatile, and will serve as your best tool while fighting through dungeons. The only thing about glyphs is there isn't a large variety of them. There are only 13 glyphs, but their versatile effects make up for their lack in numbers. Also, each one of them is a word or phrase spelled oddly, such as, "Get in there!" or, "Wait, what?" Now you may be wondering, what do I do with glyphs I have no use for? Well, do I have an answer for you. With items whose use have run out, or never was, one can convert said item into a bonus dependent on one's race. There are 7 races, each with a unique item conversion bonus. This edition is perfect for the game. Since most of the dungeons you'll be encountering are randomly generated, having the ability to convert your items into something else gives you that little bit of flexibility you'll be needing whilst dungeoning around. There are also a bunch of classes for you to choose from. There are 4 basic classes with 2 tiers above the basic classes, and then 6 special classes. The classes serve as a constant in a game which pretty much has everything else up to luck. These classes have different passive effects, and will change how you approach a dungeon depending on which class race combo you pick at the beginning of the dungeon. Lastly, there are a few other fun mechanics in the game, such as gods and challenges, which will reward you for taking on their tasks and give you some form of bonus, whether it be temporary or permanent. These mechanics make the game more flexible and will make your dungeoning experience more varied and more enjoyable. With that said, Desktop Dungeons has a lot going for it in terms of mechanics, but there are 2 problems I have with the game. In the original Desktop Dungeons, if you couldn't beat a boss, you had no choice but to quit or kill yourself in an attempt to kill the boss. But in this version, you can actually leave the dungeon with your character still alive and bring back some of the loot for your village. This is nice, but you still get that defeated feeling, especially when you feel like you did everything right. It's here where you see that the game's random nature is its biggest strength and biggest weakness. You'll always get a new experience, but sometimes you get a game that's so heavily stacked against you. With experience, you'll eventually learn tips and tricks to help you raise that win rate significantly, but early on, it really deters you from wanting to play more. The only solution I could come up with to this problem would be to drift away from the game's origins and make it less random, but that just isn't fun. Its unforgiving and random nature makes the game very rewarding, but it will slowly take a toll on you when you keep losing at later parts in the game. The other problem I have is it's stuck on computers. You can't get it on your phone, where I feel the game would shine since it doesn't require a huge time commitment. When I'm home and on my computer, I find it rather hard to convince myself to sit down and play a few rounds of Desktop Dungeons when I could be playing a bigger and longer game. I feel that this game would benefit greatly from being on phones and or tablets, but it does seem like it would be rather hard to port the game due to its UI requiring a good amount of space. But with that said, the problems I have with the game are very minor in comparison to the parts of it I enjoyed. If you have a dungeoning itch, but you don't have time to scratch it with other games' long dungeons, Desktop Dungeons may be what you want. It's not as unforgiving as roguelikes, but it's not a walk through the park either. Even when you fail to complete a dungeon, you still keep that feeling of progression in the form of gold you brought back. I highly recommend this game to those who find roguelikes enjoyable, but don't like the fact that you lose everything when you die. Or to those of you who don't have too much time, but like a game that's simple to pick up and hard to master. If I had to describe this game in one sentence, it'd probably be, crap, I died again! But hey, I have enough time for another game.